Well, good morning and welcome back to your Shannon Oaks Church Breaking News. Is everybody okay? Man, I told you every time we introduce the segment, you don't have to actually break something. You all right? Okay. I'm Zeke and ye shall find, and for our first segment, we go to our next door neighbor, Lunatic. Thanks, Zeke. Lunatic here. Gonna need a little bit more of your help, Zeke, okay? Sure, Luna. I just hope it's not another one of those knock-knock jokes. Knock. Who's there? Control freak. Control. Now you say control freak who? Seriously? All right, and for our next... Knock. Who's there? Interrupting cow. I know what you're gonna do, Luna. And for our next segment... Knock. Who's there, Luna? Ho, ho. Ho, ho, who? You know your Santa impression could use a little work. That's it. I'm going home. Welcome back, and now to our next segment, brought to you by our field reporter, Titanic. Ty? Thanks, Zeke. It's quite ironic that strap-on backwards spells no parts. When I become a superhero, I'm going to call myself Ironic. That way, when trouble comes and I'm running the other way, people will look and say, hey, isn't that ironic? Well, I'm Titanic, and I have a splitting headache after eating that iceberg lettuce. Back to you, Zeke. Anybody have any Advil? This has been your SOC Breaking News. I'm Zeke, and ye shall find. Now on to your regularly scheduled programming. Well, now that you're caught up on all the breaking news at Shannon Oaks Church, we want to thank you for welcoming us into your living room, or your den, or your kitchen. Wherever you're watching us from, we are excited to be with you. Today's true story comes from the book of Esther and has God's hand written all over it. Check it out.
King Ahasuerus was the king of Persia. Many years earlier, when Cyrus was king, he sent some of God's people back to Judah to rebuild the temple in Jerusalem. Some of God's people stayed in Persia. God's people were called Jews because they were from Judah. The king of Persia chose Esther to be his queen. Esther didn't tell the king that she was a Jew. One day, Mordecai heard that Haman, an important leader who worked for the king, was planning to kill all the Jews. Mordecai was upset. He was a Jew. He didn't want all the people he loved to be killed. Mordecai and all the Jews cried. Esther didn't know what was wrong. She sent a messenger to ask Mordecai why all the Jews were upset. Mordecai told Esther about Haman's evil plan. You have to do something, Mordecai said. Ask the king to stop Haman. Ask him to save the Jewish people. Esther sent a message back to Mordecai. No one can approach the king unless the king calls for that person first, Esther said. The punishment is death. Unless the king holds out his scepter, then you may live. You're a Jew, Mordecai said. If you don't stop Haman, he will kill you too. Maybe this is why you are the queen. Maybe God put Esther in the palace to save her people. Esther asked Mordecai and the Jews to fast for 3 days. Then Esther would go to the king, even if it meant she might die. On the 3rd day, Esther went to the king. He saw Esther and held out his golden scepter. What is it, Queen Esther? The king asked. What do you want to ask me? I'll give you anything, up to half of my kingdom. Esther said, would you and Haman come to a feast today? So Haman and the king went to Esther's feast. After eating, the king said, what do you want, Queen Esther? I'll give you anything, up to half of my kingdom. Come to my feast tomorrow, Esther said. The king agreed. The next day, Haman and the king went to Esther's feast. After eating, the king said, what do you want, Queen Esther? I'll give you anything, up to half my kingdom. Esther spoke up. There is a plan to kill me and my people. The king replied, who is responsible for this plan? This evil enemy, Haman, Esther said. The king was angry. He punished Haman and made a law to keep the Jewish people safe from their enemies. God was in control over Haman's evil plan to destroy the Jews. Like Haman, Satan wants to ruin God's plan and destroy believers. Satan thought he had won when Jesus died on the cross, but God raised Jesus from the dead and defeated Satan once and for all. All who believe in Jesus are rescued from sin and death.
Could you see the many ways that God provided for his people? I mean, Esther, a Jew, was chosen as queen. The king had mercy on Esther and accepted her presence. God impacted the king's heart, and the king later made a law to protect his own people, the Jews. Even more importantly, and don't miss this, God made a way for all of us to be saved from spiritual death. Jesus took the punishment of our sins so that we might be seen as sinless in the eyes of a perfect Father. If you want to know how you can have abundant life here and now and spend eternity with Christ forever, then please respond to the gospel today. Don't wait another minute. We would love to walk on this journey with you, so please consider letting us know your decisions. And parents, press into this time with your children and lead them well. Now more than ever, we are reminded that those on the church staff really don't have the influence that a parent does with their own children, and we're grateful for that. You, parents, are made for this. As we transition, can we shout some truths of praise to God? They'll be on the screen so you can read them before I say them. Here we go. God is good. What about the second one? God's timing is perfect. And the third one, shout it out loud. I have all I need in Him. Y'all, watch this true story about the Height family.
Preston and Janelle Height have 4 really cool kids. Like you, each are unique in their own way.
So I have 4 kids. Logan is 11, and then Karis is also 11. We adopted her from Ukraine when she was 8. And then Nathan and Owen are 8 now, and they both have cerebral palsy, and both of them are nonverbal, so they use communication devices to talk to us. Do you want to get video of him on his device? Are you ready?
When it was just Logan and his mom and dad, the Height family moved to East Asia to serve as missionaries. They wanted to share the gospel with the people there. But when Nathan and Owen were born, the family realized the boys needed extra medical care, so they moved back home to Birmingham, Alabama. The Heights continued to share the love of Jesus in their hometown, but even with their family's unique needs, they believed God still had work for them to do in East Asia. Someday. More than 8 years later, that day came, and this time, God had plans to use the whole Height family.
We knew eventually that we wanted to be back in the mission field, that we were ready to be back in the mission field. Soon after we started praying that, the Lord reminded us of a contact we had made through friends in China. Well, the ministry they founded is called Taiwan Sunshine.
Taiwan Sunshine is a ministry in Taiwan that exists to support families who have children with special needs, like the Height family. Preston, Janelle, Logan, Karis, Nathan, and Owen would be a perfect match. Now, the Heights are serving in Taiwan. Together, they are loving on families, caring for children, and making new friends, all for the gospel.
Does this inspire any of you? Families, lean into what the Lord may be saying to you in this moment. Don't let the comforts of the world and the securities of what you may have known distract you from what the Lord may be calling you deeper into. You see, all Christians are called to be missionaries. Some overseas and many in our own communities. Either way, we are called to surrender our lives. Surrender our lives for the sake of the gospel. Answer this question as a person and as a family. What does surrendering your life for the kingdom's sake require of you today? Well, as much as I don't want to move beyond that question, I trust you, parents, to keep it on the front burner of conversation with your family. So let's move to our last video, Questions from Kids.
Hey there, I'm Pastor Brian, and it's time for Questions from Kids. Braden from Pierre, South Dakota asks,
Is God involved in everything, or do things just happen by chance?
Braden, let me give you the big answer to that and then maybe drill down and try to explain a little bit more. The answer is this: God is involved in everything. God is sovereign. That's the fancy theology word for it. That means He's in control of everything and He works providentially. There's another big theology word for you. That means that He is involved in everything to bring about what He wants to bring about. So nothing happens without Him knowing about it. Nothing happens outside of His control. You know, you see that in today's story, don't you? The story of Esther. If you read through the entire book of Esther, and you can do that in one sitting, it's not really long, just read through it and just notice how many times it seems like things just happen by chance. You know, somebody happened to be in the right place at the right time, something good just happened. No, it didn't just happen. It didn't happen by chance. Esther shows us that God was involved. He was bringing the situation to pass so that Esther could step in and save God's people. God was behind the scenes doing all that. That's one of the big takeaways of Esther. The Bible is full of that. You look at the stories of the Bible, and over again, we see that God is in control. The prophecies we've been seeing about the coming of the Messiah in the Old Testament prophecies, those are evidence that God was orchestrating. He was bringing these things to pass. So everything in our lives is under His control. Now you may ask, well, then why do bad things happen? And that is simply because we live in a broken, fallen world, and God still gives us the freedom to choose to do things, and many times we choose to do what's wrong. He's in control of that, but we choose to do what's wrong. It's a tension there. It's a mystery how those things work together, but it's what the Bible teaches. It's what we have to understand, and we just have to live that out. Understanding I am responsible for choosing to obey Him, and then God is in control. Nothing happens outside of His awareness and His authority. So find comfort in that, but at the same time, be encouraged to seek to obey God and to use the freedom He's given you for His glory. So here's a question back for you. How can understanding God's involvement in everything change how you think about or react to things that happen?
As I wrap up, y'all's discussion should just be beginning. I want to encourage y'all to keep the discussion going as this video concludes. What is God doing in and through this season that shows you that He is in control and working things for the good of those who love Him? Parents, keep leading well. Families, like the Height family, be the church that He has called us to be in this season and all seasons of life. And we'll talk to you soon.